Greetings, Commander, Cerebrats, and Executors. In this episode of Playing Better StarCraft, we're going to be talking about damage. Specifically, we have two topics for this episode. First, damage types and unit sizes, and the second topic is damage and armor. Basically, we're going to talk through all the main reasons that a unit does a certain amount of damage. So first off, damage types and unit sizes. Now, when I talk about unit sizes in this video, I am not talking about how physically large the units are on the map. There is a concept in the design of the game which is called a unit's size, but it's really more like the unit's armor type. So a Marine has one size, and a siege tank has a different size, but what those unit sizes are actually doing is determining how much damage they take from certain attacks. So if you select any given unit in the game, you'll notice the weapons that the unit has are listed down here in the bottom center. We're not going to talk about the armor panel yet, but the weapon panel shows you a damage amount. Goliaths have two different weapons. We see a damage amount for each of those two different weapons. But the amount of damage we actually see here is not always the amount of damage that actually gets done. If I take a siege tank, it says that the siege tank's weapon should do 30 damage. Here's a Marine, which is on 40 health right now. And if I tell the tank to attack the Marine once, the Marine has only taken 15 damage, not 30. That is because of the damage type the siege tank does and of the unit size the Marine has. So there are three sizes and three damage types in this game. The three damage types are normal, concussive, and explosive, and the three unit sizes are small, medium, and large. Concussive damage does well versus small units, and poorly versus large units. Explosive damage does well versus large and poorly versus small, and normal damage does full damage to everything. Again, when I say small, medium, and large units, this is more a description of the kind of armor the unit has. Think of it as whether the thing is wearing just a suit or whether it's wearing heavy vehicle plating, something like that. It's not about how physically large the unit is. So I said earlier, normal damage does full damage to everything. Marine attacks are normal damage. If I have this Marine attack this siege tank, it says 6 damage here, and that attacks twice. The siege tank has taken 10 damage. Each attack did 5 damage. Now, the reason it only did 5 damage and not 6 is actually to do with the number of armor points the siege tank has, which is a subject we will get into later in the video. But if we have the Marine shoot this Vulture over here, the Vulture has taken 6 damage, exactly the amount of damage the Marine's gun does. So Marines do normal damage with their attack. Same with battle cruisers. A battle cruiser does normal damage, 25 damage with each of these attacks. And if we look at this Vulture, it's on 74 health, and the battle cruiser did 25 damage, bringing it down to 49 health. So those are two examples of normal damage. Now, as for the unit sizes, the Marine is an example of a small type unit, the Vulture is a medium type unit, and the Siege Tank is a large type unit. So we're going to use those for most of the examples in this part of the video. Now, Siege Tanks do explosive damage. Explosive damage is good against large and bad against small. Explosive damage does full damage to large targets, it does 75% damage to medium targets, and it does only 50% damage to small targets. So if I bring a Vulture over here, the Siege Tank's base damage is 30, but Vultures are medium, and explosive damage only does 75%. So it'll be something in the order of 22.
Something on your mind?
Yep, 22 damage. In fact, that's 22.5 damage. If we have the Siege Tank attack again, it should add up to, what is that? 22.5 times 2 is 45. And notice the Vulture's down to 35 health now. That's 45 damage total. Because the Siege Tank actually did 22.5 damage on the first shot, and then 22.5 damage again on the second shot. It's just that StarCraft health bars don't display the half, but it is there. So units can do half a damage using this system. They can also do a quarter of a damage, which is a separate subject.
Yes, sir. Orders, sir. What do you
If I, however, have the siege tank attack a marine, this marine is on 25 health. The siege tank has 30 base damage, but the marine is small type, and the siege tank does explosive damage, so it'll only do half damage to the marine, which is 15 damage. So if I have the siege tank attack the marine's down to 10 health from 25. It took 15 damage. And I'm just going to show you an example with a vulture. Vultures do concussive damage. Concussive is good against small. It does full damage against small targets. It does half damage against medium targets, and it does 25% damage, 1/4 against large targets. So 20 damage is what we're expecting from this vulture. Attack the marine. Marine is small, so it'll do full damage, and 20 damage is done. If we have one vulture attack another vulture, it will only do half of this, which is 10 damage. No, that's not right. Oh yes it is. 10 damage done. Because a concussive attack, which a vulture does, deals only half its damage against medium targets, such as other vultures. Against a siege tank, however, siege tanks are large type again, but there is an armor point that's going to mess this calculation up. But it's going to do very close to a quarter of 20. It's going to do close to 5 damage. So on 150 health, one shot, and it's on 146 health. It only took 4 damage, not 5. That extra point is because of its armor point, which is not the subject that we've gotten to talk about yet. But that is a sample of the unit sizes and damage types system. Every weapon in the game does a different type of damage, and every unit in the game has a different size. Now, the relationship of small, medium, and large sizes and concussive, normal, and explosive damage, it's basically just a table of percentages. I will be leaving in the description a link to the page on StarCraft Wiki that tells you those percentages, so you don't have to just remember them based off hearing my voice saying them. But that is all we need to say about unit sizes and damage types for this video. Now we're going to move on to armor. The thing that I keep talking about. This idea that the siege tank has a point of armor. Now this is a separate system to the unit sizes and damage types system. When a marine who does 6 damage, I'm going to use mainly normal units with normal type attacks for the armor demonstration, because normal type attacks do full damage in terms of unit sizes. So a marine has 0 infantry armor and 6 damage from his rifle. If I have this marine shoot another marine, this marine has taken 6 damage, as we expect. But if I bring a battlecruiser over here and have this marine shoot the battlecruiser, the battlecruiser has only taken 3 damage, not 6. If we look at the battlecruiser's armor, it has 3 armor points. So the way this armor system works is your unit does a certain amount of damage, and when that damage is being applied to an enemy unit, the enemy unit can have a number of armor points. And however many armor points they have is subtracted from the damage being done to that target. And only the result is actually dealt. So a marine should do 6 damage, but a battlecruiser has 3 armor points, so a marine shooting a battlecruiser only does 3 damage, 6 minus 3. If I have a siege tank shoot at another siege tank, remember siege tanks are large type and they deal explosive damage. You'd expect a siege tank to deal the full 30 damage to another siege tank. But in fact, the siege tank only takes 29 damage, not 30, because siege tanks have 1 point of armor. Now, virtually all combat units in StarCraft have upgrades. They have weapon upgrades and armor upgrades on various buildings. If I research an infantry armor upgrade, just one, and actually I am going to turn on the speed cheat so that happens instantly. Marines now have 1 infantry armor instead of 0. If one marine shoots at another marine, that shot only did 5 damage, not 6. Because there's 1 point of armor which is being subtracted from every attack that this marine suffers.
All crews reporting. All crews reporting.
Every armor upgrade in the game adds 1 point of armor per upgrade. But there are also weapon upgrades, and weapon upgrades vary in how much they add. I'm going to add the vehicle weapons upgrade, just the first level. Siege tanks do naturally 30 damage, but the weapons upgrade for vehicles has given them +3, not just +1. Generally, the weapons upgrades give you about 10% of the unit's base damage, is the amount that they add for each upgrade tier you get. So weapon upgrades can be very strong. In general, weapon upgrades often give you more value for units that attack frequently but do very little damage. However, units that attack frequently but do little damage per shot suffer a lot against high armor targets, like battlecruisers. Battlecruisers have a lot of natural armor, and if you start researching their armor upgrades from the armory, they get a lot more. Marine only does 6 damage naturally. If you research all the ship armor upgrades, the battlecruiser now has 6 armor and the Marine does 6 damage. This doesn't actually mean the Marine does 0 damage when it shoots at a battlecruiser. This battlecruiser on 497 health if I have the Marine shoot. Still 497, but if I shoot again, it's now 496. If I shoot again, still 496, but if I shoot again, 495. When the level of armor that a unit has is such that the thing that's shooting at it should do no damage, that the total armor is more than the total damage that was being put in, then half a point of damage is done with every attack. It's better than 0, but it's not a lot better than 0. You still take ages to kill anything. So remember, halves do exist in the damage system. In fact, quarter damage points also exist.
Good day, Commander.
Now, I've already shown you the basics of the armor system and of the damage types system. There's one more small point I want to make. Some units, when they attack, fire multiple attacks at once. Goliaths, for instance, versus air units, battlecruisers in this case, if I attack this battlecruiser, notice the Goliath fires 2 missiles per volley. Armor applies separately to each of those 2 missiles. So this battlecruiser has 6 armor total. The Goliath's missile pack says 24 damage, but that's actually 24 damage split between the 2 missiles it shoots. So 12 damage for each of those 2 missiles, and 6 armor for every hit to the battlecruiser. Each of those 2 12 damage missiles is going to have 6 damage subtracted from it, because each of them gets armor applied separately. This battlecruiser is on full health. I shoot once, and the battlecruiser has only taken 12 damage, not 24, because the 6 armor reduction was applied twice. So this means armor upgrades tend to be better versus units that have these double attacks. There aren't too many units like this, however. Goliaths obviously do that, as I just demonstrated. Protoss Zealots have a double attack like this. The Terran Valkyrie shoots a bunch of missiles at once. I think it's 8 missiles at a time. And the Mutalisk has a bounce attack. When their attack hits one unit, there's a bounce that hits 2 other units nearby with less damage. But armor still reduces those bounce damage amounts as well. So armor can be extra good versus those units particularly.
Good day, Commander. Receiving transmission.
One more point that I want to talk about is how these 2 systems interact, the damage types and unit sizes versus the armor points reducing amounts of damage as they come in. The formula is that armor is applied before the percentage reduction from damage types. So, I think we have a good example with siege tanks and vultures. This vulture is supposed to do 22 damage. I'm just going to grab the rest of the vehicle armor upgrades. The siege tank has 4 armor. So what will actually happen here is the 4 armor will reduce the vulture's 22 damage shot down to 18 damage, and then after that, the difference in the damage type and the unit size will come into play. The vulture does concussive damage. The siege tank is large type armor, which means the vulture's 18 damage will then get divided by 4. Only a quarter of that damage will be done. And 18 damage divided by 4 is 4.5. So if I shoot the tank once, 146. If I shoot the tank again, 141. So the first shot seemed to only do 4 damage, and then the second shot did 5 damage, and then the third shot does 4, and then the fourth shot does 5. Actually, every shot is doing 4.5 damage.
Systems functional. Destination, sir.
Good day, Commander.
Now, you can actually get a quarter of a point of damage in StarCraft using this system. The easiest way to do it is to have a vulture attack something that has... Not a vulture. I was going to say a ghost, but actually I think a vulture works too. This is 20... Yeah, this should do it. So I'm going to have the vulture attack the command center instead of the siege tank. Something that I have forgotten to mention so far, almost all buildings in the game are large type and have 1 armor. It's not displayed anywhere on the building, but that's how they work. Buildings are large and have 1 armor. So the 22 damage this vulture does will have 1 subtracted from it for the 1 point of building armor, and then that resultant 21 damage will be divided by 4, which is actually 5.25 damage. So let's demonstrate this. 1 attack from the vulture. The command center has now taken 5 damage. 1 attack from the vulture, 5 more damage. 1 attack from the vulture, 5 more damage. But on the 4th attack from the vulture, the command center took 6 damage instead of 5. Well, what was actually going on was the command center was actually taking 5.25 or 5.25 damage with every shot. It was just on the 4th shot that added up to showing up as an extra point of damage that we hadn't already seen yet. So you can get a quarter of a point of damage in this game. Because first armor is applied, then the percentage reduction from the unit size is applied. So, I've talked all about armor, damage, unit sizes, the different mechanics that cause you to do amounts of damage that are not the amount of damage displayed on the bottom center of your screen. This is really important. There are some cases where these damage rules make a big difference as to how quickly a unit kills another unit. They can heavily influence what is strong against what. And they're a great reason to get your weapons and armor upgrades. They make your units better in terms of the armor and damage output problems.